Hello.
Hello.
Well, it looks like it might actually be working.
Hello everybody, welcome to the 9 Years podcast.
Oh, well, no, don't joke with me that we're live. Oh, wow. I'm very sorry, everybody. We were miles away. We were pondering this defeat. I can't talk to them. People are just rubbishing it because it's never going to happen. And I'll bet my mortgage, my life, everything I have that Neil Ardley will not go to Notts County.
Interesting.
Apparently they've had 18 stays of
All right, I think that's me in the background. Yes, it is. I've got a double side of it. Good evening. Welcome to Sunday Night Live. A professional as always. I can see we started already that way. Welcome. Obviously, we thought it's an important part of the season. There's something going on in the season, isn't there? So we thought we'd do an ad hoc Sunday Night Live, and as you can see, we've got some guests. We're just waiting for Aaron Paul to join us. He's just finishing off his own podcast that he's recording, so he'll join us shortly. As you can see, in order, been joined by George Jones. George.
Hello.
Thank you. Good manners, George. We're also introduced by Gabriel. Sorry, we're also joined by Gabriel Sutton. Gabriel, hello.
Hi, Stu. I like the look of your cat. What's your cat called?
Molly. I've got two. They always try and get on camera. Yeah, you might see them sort of just appear and best them. We're also joined by Don Strasbourg, Graham Stacey, Graham Doobs, as everyone knows him. Graham, good evening.
Evening, guys. How you all doing?
Good. Yes, good, mate. And finally, we are joined by Anne-Marie Godfrey. Anne-Marie, how are you?
I'm very well. Thank you for having me on. Yeah, I'm fresh back from the New Forest, having refereed down there today. So, yeah.
Where did you?
Although I'm not going to be quite as tired as Graham, who I think believe ran a half marathon today.
I know.
Thank you for joining us.
Well, you've got to do something before breakfast, haven't you?
Yeah, mine's just sitting down.
Yeah, I say that I can't walk anymore.
Yeah, New Forest was that. So the only team I know down New Forest was we played Bashley, didn't we? If I remember properly, down at New Forest.
Do you know what? I drove past their ground on the way back, and I had the biggest grin on my face, thinking I don't even remember where we would have parked because I was looking. It's just like a recreation ground. No disrespect.
Yeah.
But, God, we used to play then. Played Sheffield Wednesday yesterday. It's just crazy. But
Do you know what? Because I've never been down to a New Forest when we played Bashley. And I remember the coach going through, and I'm thinking, oh, this is a bit posh. The ground can't be down here. And it was. To be fair, we did go to some lovely places.
Yeah.
Some dodgy places, of course, as well. But the good places. Anne-Marie, I remember you sending us a picture. You met the rather tall Peter Crouch.
Yeah,
this week.
Hopefully, I should be starting tomorrow with Mark Bowen as our new target man. If only. Yeah, do you know what I was really, really lucky to be involved running the line on Thursday at Dulwich Hamlet for it was basically a charity match featuring the very first ever all transgender women's team.
Yep.
I think it was their sort of first match that they had. It was a really, really great evening, and Peter Crouch obviously used to play for Dulwich Hamlet, and he was there filming a documentary for Sky Sports. I assume it was around kind of diversity and inclusion within football, but he was just brilliant. He knew all the players' names. He really got involved. He was superb. Seems just like a really down-to-earth, nice guy, and gets it. Totally got what it was about, and it didn't feel like he was, doing that documentary. For his image, he understood what it was about, and hopefully it's kind of watch this space. It was a really great thing to be part of.
They must have a nightmare trying to record with him, isn't it? Because you obviously need one camera for his height and then one camera for everyone else, don't you? Do you know what I mean? Like, how do you fit in the shot?
Yeah.
Is he as tall as you expect him to be?
You couldn't miss him. I mean, he couldn't fit in the dugout, to be fair to him.
Oh, superb. Do you know what? I remember seeing Peter Crouch when he first played for QPR. My best mate's a QPR fan, so I used to go to a lot of like Wimbledon QPR games. And I remember when he played, he was just like freak. It was just like he looked so ungainly, but he actually was quite good with his feet, considering how far away his feet was from his head. But yeah, no, I remember seeing him in the early days when he literally had no weight whatsoever on that. Okay, so we're just waiting for Aaron Paul to join us. He will join us shortly. So yeah, what's been going on, George? there's so much been going on. Like a week in football is a long time, but in a Wimbledon life, in a span of Wimbledon, it's a hell of a long time, isn't it? So we're gonna do it like a round table today. So we're not gonna do like a Q&A because that's quite boring. So you will see our people on the panel raising their hand. It's not like being back at school, but it's just so we can know when they want to join in, and then we can keep the conversation going that way. So we're going to start with some topics. So let's start at the beginning. I think that's where we are. So Cambridge at home, a 1-0 defeat, and let's be fair, George. It was an unsavoury reaction at the end of the game. I suppose where I'm going with that is, was Cambridge and the reaction, was that the final straw where, you just have to act?
I think the reaction probably was, because I think a small section of our fan base did make it quite clear what they thought at the end. It was a small percentage of people booing. It wasn't massive, but they were quite loud. So I do have to think that was probably the thing that Dubes might be able to talk about it, but, probably forced certain people into thinking action had to be taken and decisions had to be made. It's unfortunate because I still, I backed Robert. I did on our post-match show after that game. I still think we would have, maybe if we might not have turned it around this year, but I still think next year we would have, and it would have been in a better place. But I do think it's tough to come back from the scenes that we saw at the end of that game at Cambridge.
Anne-Marie, you were at a hen party, weren't you? You weren't there for the.
From what I remember, I think I was at my hen do. Yeah. From the little snippets of information. Thank you for keeping me in the loop on WhatsApp of what was happening.
Not a lot.
That was essentially it. Really, I was absolutely gutted. I think I wasn't overly surprised. Seeing the result afterwards, but from my understanding, that was kind of that reaction that you were talking about, George. Was the first time sort of that I've known that to happen this season, which is quite unusual for Wimbledon fans. They tend to be quite patient. So I think, like Stu said, that that was quite indicative that people felt that a change was needed. That's not my own personal opinion, but. Like you said, so much has happened in 7 days of football. I just can't believe how much has happened at this club in the last 7 days. Where to start?
Definitely. Dubes, were you at the game on for Cambridge?
I was. You know what? I wasn't. It sounds like a good one to miss in that respect. But it was babysitting issues, as is so often the case. But obviously I can't speak too specifically about anything sort of HR and everything. And
of course.
I think I might be saying that a few times through the show.
That's all right.
I hope everyone understands. But what I will say is I don't think, as George just said, it's a small group of fans being vocal. I don't think it's not X Factor. You don't just hire and fire people on the basis of a few people getting a bit rowdy. Because I think we've had some bad performances over the season. Early season, we had some great performances. Then you sort of sign someone up for 9 years, and then or whatever, that's Pardew, isn't it? But then when you lose to Bolton 4-0, is that instantly people were annoyed by the performance? You don't have a reaction on the basis of one bad performance or one particular small section of a crowd. I think you have to have a longer term view in general. So I'm speaking quite broadly here. So in answer to your question, I don't think a couple of people chanting for someone's head a particular game is I know you're sort of saying, is that the straw that breaks the camel's back perhaps, but I don't think people make decisions on the basis of a little section of the crowd has turned. Does that make sense?
Definitely. Gabriel, also looking from. Sorry, go on, Anne-Marie.
Sorry, I was just going to say that just in case I was misinterpreted in terms of the booing being, that's a deciding factor, like you said with X Factor. As soon as you hear boos, that's not what I meant. I just meant in terms of that, if that's the first time it's happened on a slightly larger scale, you can tell that's when people start, there's a clear mentality amongst fans that there's friend and angst, but absolutely that isn't the cause and the effect of Robbo leaving us. But yeah, it sounded like I potentially missed the missed a good one last Saturday. It was probably a good weekend to have the Hendo on. From a selfish point of view.
Gabriel, obviously looking from the outside in, were you surprised to see that potentially Wimbledon fans had turned it, in terms of, from your experience at other clubs, is once that's sort of done, that unrest, is that really difficult to come back from?
It's an interesting one, isn't it, Stu? I think my impression of Wimbledon fans is that a lot of you are actually probably more loyal than a lot of fans, and maybe have that sense of connection to people, maybe on a slightly greater scale than maybe other fan bases. So, and I think that actually, when you look at it, 20 games without a win, I think it was for Mark Robinson, 21 in all competitions. That's not good enough. That was the worst in the league, I think, since Berry winless in the 16-17 campaign. So I think if you look at the bare stats of it, it's not good enough by anyone's reckoning. But I also think you have to balance that with the fact that Mark Robinson it is a really good coach, in my opinion. So the young players, I don't think Ayuba Sal signed a 3-year deal last summer without Mark Robinson's influence. And I actually think that in different circumstances, if you had said to me, Wimbledon are definitely going to be in League Two next season, I'd probably be looking at someone like Mark Robinson that you'd want in charge, because this is someone who can develop young players, develop saleable assets, and maybe build something over a longer period. But I think that he's a very process-driven manager. And sometimes when it comes to the high stakes, you need a different kind of approach. And I think Wimbledon needed a different type of energy in the dugout in order to beat the drop. And it seems like that's the reason the board have taken the decision that they've taken.
Yeah, definitely. We've got some, by the way, everyone watching and stuff like that, if you want to send a question in, Gary Fletcher has. Gary, good evening to you. Send a question in. We'll chuck them all to Doobs. No, I'm joking. But yeah, Doobs going to go now. But yeah, send your questions in. All we ask is that the questions are respectful in your languages. Okay, unless it's a George, and you can say whatever you want. So let's have a look. So Gary Fletcher, I do think fans held on for way too long. Something needed to be done, and to be honest, it's probably too late anyway. Let me just finish off his message. Next 2 games are huge. We both win both. We give ourselves a chance. Lose next 2. I don't think we can come back from that. George, I'll give that to you.
Yeah, no, I think, anything less than 4 points from our next 2 games, I think we're probably gone. I think that's being completely honest and completely realistic. I think, and like Gabe said, going back to Rob, I think, realistically, we are going to be in League Two next year. I think it's pretty much impossible to have a 20-odd game winless run and not get relegated, no matter how good you are in the first half of that season. Which is why I'm disappointed we didn't stick with him, because I think we're down, and I think, to be honest, whatever happens, we are going down this year. I think it would take a minor miracle. I can see Dukes wants to come in after that, so I'll hand over him to him.
You must have said a buzzword.
But just, I think we need a minimum of 4 points from our next 2 to give us a fighting chance.
Dukes?
We're not down yet. We're not down. We've been here before. I'm not one of those happy, clappy people, I don't think. But we've been in probably worse positions. This is in our hands now. We can't ask for much more than that. To say that, was it 6 games ago, is it now? That it's in our hands. I think there's a lot of white feathers being packed, ready to be posted out to people who have given up. Gary says, to be honest, it's probably too late anyway. I don't agree. Irrespective of time, I'm not talking about timing and stuff, but where we are today. We saw how we did yesterday, and fine margins, but that was a team competing. And I think we've got players who have had a massive lack of confidence, but I think they just need to go up the dog and fox and hammer a few things out, have a few drinks, and score Wimbledon, and then we'll be back. But I think it's within our hands. All these people saying we're down, it's too late. I disagree, and I think talk like that, it probably will be. If the players are thinking like that, but absolutely not at the moment. We've got it's in our hands. We let's not give up, please.
Anne-Marie, interesting what Gary's saying there, isn't it? In terms of, I think the fans held on way too long. I think when I look at it, I think also, as Gabriel just said, in terms of respect levels for Robbo, I think there was a lot of respect. He's been here 18 years. I think it's always so difficult sometimes, isn't it, when you have someone that has such an attachment, knows a lot of people. I suppose it's interesting if you look at the Mark Bowen situation coming in, no association whatsoever. But do you think the fans held, as Gary said, do you think the fans did hold on, hoping that Robbo would turn it around? Because let's be fair, we've had games, Cheltenham, Doncaster, we've had games where we could have won and got out of that run, but it just didn't happen, did it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if there's several games that we can look back this season and just think, if only this had happened. There have been some really, really, like Robbo said relentlessly, that the performances were there at times. We just weren't getting the results. I think that, absolutely, I can see what Gary's saying, that in some respects, that our fans are quite patient, like Gabriel was saying, where we give people a fair crack of the whip. Robbo's had a huge history with us. He's invested so much, and I think everyone so badly wanted it to work. I can see it from both sides. I'm still hurting about it personally. I still feel quite gutted for Robbo. I absolutely love the guy and backed everything that he was trying to build at Wimbledon. And it will take time to adjust for the players, for the fans, for the club itself to having this new manager. But yeah, I think in terms of did we hold on too long, I think a lot of it just came from that respect and that commitment and a trust in his vision. But maybe it's the right change, and I suppose ultimately we are in the situation we're in now with Mark, and we have to get with Mark Bowen, and we have to get behind him. We've got no other choice, and totally agree with Doobs that we can't go into that mentality thinking it's done. We absolutely have to stay positive. We've been in this situation before, and we can do it again.
Definitely. And we're joined by Aaron Paul. Aaron, good evening.
Sorry for being late. I feel bad.
To be honest with you,
civilian duty over on the other side. So,
to be fair, I hadn't sent you the link. I'd put it in there, but I hadn't pressed send. I was thinking, where is he? And then thought, I haven't actually sent it to you. On that side of it.
Duty did call. Just a minute.
Aaron, how are you? You're tired, mate. We were chatting this morning, and my wife was like, he sounds like he's just got out of bed. But then Bournemouth is a long trek. That's where you were yesterday, wasn't it?
Yes, that's where I basically live. A lot of people say that I should probably get a season ticket down there. But yeah, Bournemouth yesterday, but it's the culmination of a few long weeks. Got a few busy weeks ahead as well. And probably the stress of watching Wimbledon as well. Doesn't really help, does it?
No. So you can see, we're just quickly discussing, obviously, Robbo's situation. And Gary Fletcher there was just asking a question. And we think the fans maybe held on way too long. Saying to Gabriel earlier that Wimbledon fans are quite patient. But do you think once the fans express their dissatisfaction, let's say, do you think it's really hard to recover from that situation, Aaron?
It's very hard to turn it around, isn't it? I can't remember many managers who have actually, I can't think of many managers actually have turned a real negative situation around. Results speak for themselves. It was disappointing. Since Christmas has been disappointing, let's be fair. And we all wanted it to work out. I picked up sort of back in what Anne-Marie said. Everyone wanted this vision. I called for this vision and this idea to come in when it looked like Neil Ardley was coming to the end of his time at the club. And I called for the club to find its Danny Cowley, to find its young head coach who's going to build something and really build a strong foundation for the future. And we all thought we had it a year ago with Mark Robinson. His love for the club was really... It really got you on board. It made you feel like, yes, this is a team that you want to believe in. You've got some really exciting young players, and you felt that, he's guided them for so long through the academy ranks, that he'd be able to transfer that to the Football League. I think this club has always been built on real prolific, talismanic number nines. And losing Joe Pigott and not replacing him has been a problem. I know, obviously, it's I don't know if this is affiliated with the club and we're allowed to give opinion. For me, I think, Aaron Presley, a lot was expected of him. And for me, it's been disappointing. Sam Cosgrove coming in. Yes, there's games to come, but his impact has been disappointing. And fundamentally, when you're losing those goals and you expect to find those goals from elsewhere, and look, let's be fair, at the start of the season, record goal scorers in Europe, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 games in. Everyone's thinking,
I've forgotten about that.
Need joke, is it? We're fine, we're laughing, but sometimes, and I think you'll see this with other clubs, and there are other clubs in the EFL, across the EFL and the Premier League, who have very young squads. The engines run out a little bit quicker, and you need a little bit of energy, a little bit of nous, an old dog somewhere to come in and do a job. Speaking of old dogs, there was a tribute day for Bayo yesterday at Wickham. And he is the oldest of the dogs. Danny Bourman, 43 years old, retiring, the oldest of the dogs.
Well, allegedly 43. I think he's older than that.
Stuart, you see the impact that these players have. I'm not saying, Danny Bourman and Adebayo Akinfenwa would make a difference. Who knows? They probably would actually. Bayo can still do a job. Yeah. But that bit of nous, that bit of streetwiseness, someone to go in there and ruffle a few feathers. And let's be fair, in signing Lee Brown, everyone thought that maybe that would happen, but you can't expect Lee Brown to get you 10 goals to keep you up or 15 goals to keep you up. And so it's just been a little bit disappointing. A lot of optimism, but ultimate disappointment. A bit like when they brought out the cookie dough Kit Kat chunky. A lot of optimism, but crap. No one needs it. It's a waste of time. I see it now and I ignore it.
How have you linked on to that? Anyway, so I'm going to give Kevin Boris has got a question for you, Aaron. What or who is that behind you?
That's Hasbullah. 1 minute.
We've had this conversation before. I have no idea.
He comes places with me. Yeah. He's the man. He is the man. Just search Hasbullah and everyone, you'll know. Whoever knows. Whoever doesn't know, you never know. But he lives in my office.
Gabriel, do you take anybody with you when you go to games? Is this a thing? I just take George, to be fair, and he sort of. Gabriel, I suppose the question is, where did it all go wrong? If you think about, sorry, Kevin's come back. Sorry, everyone. Kevin just wants to have a conversation with you, Aaron. Get rid of it. It's a bit harsh.
Get rid of it.
It's a bit harsh, isn't it? It's not an it, Kevin. It's a person.
I'll be honest. I haven't heard from Kevin in so long. I thought we were rid of him. So I've forgotten what he looks like this man. So yeah.
But to be fair, Kevin's now in the East Stand. I don't think he's shown his face because, well, no one wins. So you just leave. You just leave at the back, don't you? Do you know what I mean? On that sort of side of it. But no, Kevin, hope you're well, mate. I really do. But that's a bit harsh. Get rid of it. Gabriel, I suppose where did it all go wrong? I suppose that's where we're looking. Aaron's spot on. Top goal scorers. I forgot all about that. Early in the season, away win at Doncaster, home draw against Bolton when we were 3-1 down, win against Oxford, win against Accrington midweek, and then nearly a win at Wickham, apart from a late equaliser. It's gone. It seems to have just all of a sudden gone. Can you, from the outside in, can you put your finger on it?
I think football has narratives, and when Wimbledon was scoring all these goals in the first half of the season, and people were saying, "Can we push for the playoffs?" Or I don't know if anyone was actually saying that, but there was a lot of excitement, I suppose, and I think that. Then we were saying this was a really exciting young side with Asal and with Redoni and McCormick as well. And I think that the flip side of having such young players is that in these high stakes situations, it's very difficult to deal with the pressure because so many of them just haven't faced much like it before. Maybe a little bit last season as a taster, but this is something else. And I think the club had to make certain cutbacks to pay for the new stadium and sort of maybe cut down on sort of proven performers. Obviously had to sell Ollie Palmer. And to me, that feels like a big thing because Palmer was a real character in this Wimbledon dressing room. He might not score 10, 15 goals a season, but he was a real focal point, that someone that can battle and bring a Sal, Redoni, McCormack, sometimes even Marsh into the game. And I think that with what Aaron's alluded to, Cosgrave hasn't really kept the mustard. Aaron Presley hasn't lived up to really high expectations that were kind of held for him. And then you're looking at players like Zach Robinson, who apparently did pretty well yesterday, and he's an exciting young player, but you wouldn't really want to be relying on him in a dogfight. So I think it's a combination of not really having a focal point and also not having that sort of core of leaders. And I think next season, in whichever division, that you've got to try and redress that balance.
George?
Yeah, I think, when looking at our season so far, obviously Ollie going was a big point. He was, you look at him, he had 10 goals pretty much by the time he left. You think if he got another 10 after that, which, is realistic, that's probably at least 10 points. With that, we're not where we are. We're not on a winless run. So I think that's a big thing. But I think, to be honest, I think the talking point that not enough people are talking about is Simo leaving. James Simmons, when he left and, wasn't really replaced. Simo, the coach, who's now gone to Scandinavia after he was recalled on loan effectively from Chelsea when his loan deal ended in January. His last game with us was the Oxford game. And we haven't won since then. I think Simo was a major part of what we did. He fitted in well to the group. And I think it was a really big blow to us. We weren't able to replace him. Obviously, James Oliver-Pearce stepped up from the 18s, but not having someone with that level of experience, I think, probably hasn't helped.
Definitely. Aaron, go on, and then do
I
after
don't
you.
know how to put your hand up on this funny thing.
Come on, mate.
Am I the only one who really was hoping for, Quayne Bartley to come in and save the day, to, just go and destroy people? Because this kid looks like a tank. I want to see it. I really, really want to see him play.
Do you know what? He's actually, I think, is he, George, am I right in thinking he's at Cotteswood at the moment? Or is that Sassu and...
Yeah, that's Sassu and Morg. So Quayne's out on loan. I can't remember where he's gone, but it is at that sort of Ryman level, combined counties level, just to get minutes.
Or something like that.
Not Corinthians, but somewhere like that.
He was at Cray earlier this season.
Yeah, he was at Cray and then got recalled. He did it quite.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know what that involves, but if it is the work experience that I did when I was a kid, then he'd be doing a lot of photocopying.
The work experience is the legal term for a loan deal for someone who ain't signed a pro contract yet.
Photocopying, tea making, sweeping up, that kind of stuff.
To be fair, Aaron, when actually Bartley does start growing, crikey, he's still, let's be fair, he's still, was he 17, George, or 18 now?
18, just turned 18.
When he does properly grow, him and Paul Cannon-Baye in a dark room, you don't want to be there, do you?
I'm looking forward to when he fills out as well, when he turns, early 20s and he starts filling out like all the rest of them do.
Yeah. Dave, so you were going to say?
Well, yeah, just talking about losing strikers and stuff. I've seen, where did it go wrong? I've seen January described as an act of self-harm, and I can't disagree too much in retrospect. What I would say is, we've got to learn lessons from that, obviously, and that'll be something in the summer. Where did it go wrong? Why did we sell someone? But what I would say is, on paper, it didn't look as bad as a deal as it maybe has transpired in retrospect. We signed someone, so we got £300,000. It wasn't a case of we need the money, let's flop who we can. It was a case of this seems like a fair deal all round kind of thing. A good deal for the player and a good deal for us. What will we do with that money? We will replace him adequately. So what happened? I think we missed a couple of games without a replacement, which was not ideal. I should say, am I right to say that? It was not ideal. But on paper, we brought someone in who a year ago cost £2 million. A £2 million, 6'5" centre forward, and you think, okay, and he scored goals, albeit north of the border, which I'm not sure what that equates to in League One, League Two, whatever Championship. But Birmingham thought it would equate to Championship.
Oh God, I'm a Birmingham fan, and we've shelled out quite big wages reportedly for Sam Cosgrave, and to be honest, he's not really cut it for us, and he's not particularly different striker wise to Lukas Djukovic. So that was a big mistake for us, and it seems like, to be honest, it seems like he struggled a little bit for your lot as well. So
for anyone who just following on from Gab's point, for anyone else who wants to understand Birmingham City and expenditure, I recommend Almajir's blogs, Almajir. They'll tell you about the spending habits of the executives of Birmingham City, because them spending £2 million on Cosgrove, hey, that's nothing. That's a fart in a hurricane, pal. Trust me. They spent a lot more on a lot of other things. Am I not right now? I mean, they're interesting spenders, you know.
And dude, just quickly before you come back in there, it's interesting you saying that, Gabriel, because I know when I was on your podcast you were doing, when we were doing the with the Gillingham fans and stuff, and the Shrewsbury fans, and they had the rumour, dudes, I'm not going to ask you to comment on this because I wouldn't do that, but the rumour was it's 18 grand a week at Birmingham.
Yeah. And I almost feel bad sometimes, Stu, to kind of bring that, because it feels like Cosgrove is being sort of judged against that sort of benchmark.
Yeah, we'd always set that contract, wouldn't we?
Yeah, of course. I'll take 18 grand a week. So it's nothing, but it just shows you the financial decisions that some clubs make. And yeah, we really got it wrong with that.
Yeah. Dave, sorry, mate, just before you come back in there. Sorry.
No, it's just, so all I was saying was on paper at the time, we were getting a £2 million striker until the end of the season. We were signing, we talked about, we need a bit of nous in the squad. Got Lee Brown, great player, played against us and looked great all the time, so we brought him in. So we've ticked that box a little bit. We've got £2 million striker to the end of the season, and we've got money for the summer. So when you're considering this, not that it was up to me or the Don Trust board to consider this particularly, but speaking as a fan almost, it didn't look that bad initially. And would you do things differently with the benefit of hindsight? Maybe. But at the time, there were justifications for what happened. So when we're talking about losing a striker and Wheels coming off in January, I don't think we all thought it would at the time. I think most people were quite supportive of we got Lee Brown in big tick, £2 million striker in big tick. We've done quite well. Whereas it hasn't quite panned out as well as it could have done, should we say. But Zach Robinson has come in twice and looked great.
Well, yeah, this is the question from Mike Overall. Would we have been better off if we had recalled and played Zach Robinson in the January when we lost Ollie Palmer? Aaron, you want to come in?
Yeah, I was just wondering, this Sam Cosgrove £2 million PR sort of exercise that has occurred. It is a bit of a PR exercise. When people go around going, we've signed a £2 million striker, we signed a £2 million striker, I really don't think that his value should have mattered back in January. It's always a difficult time to go out and get a striker. Traditionally, again, Joe Pigott, he was a 30 grand striker from Maidstone, from non-league, or what the value was. Lyle Taylor was a failed striker who travelled to every single club in this country and tried to get a game. I really hate that when people are going, right, he's a £2 million striker. Mate, Birmingham couldn't find their backsides with both hands. That's why they're in the predicament they're in. Sorry, Gabe. I know they're your club. I apologise.
We've turned on to Birmingham now. I feel a bit harsh.
I can't argue with you.
Shambles in what they do. So for us to sit here and reflect and go, oh, it's a £2 million striker. Mate, it's a £2 million that someone else has paid for him. 1.
Yeah.
2, it's £2 million that someone else is being ripped off for. 3, how can you take that as a positive and carry it forward and go, we've got a £2 million striker, well, he's dud. Like he's dud, or he's not going to work, or it's not quite there. I don't know. Maybe I'm quite negative on that front. I like what Michael said about Zach Robinson. We've gone through the youth. We've looked at these players. Honestly, the player to go and get was Bodvarsson from Millwall. I know he was pants at Millwall in South London, but I believe from someone I know that he would have come to Wimbledon in a heartbeat. You know why? Because he wouldn't have to move to Bolton then. He wouldn't have to move north. But he lived in South London already. And there you go. It was just a missed opportunity.
George?
Just if I'd be quite interested to jump in on Zach Robinson's done really well, and I wrote an article actually for the Sack Race talking about sort of Wimbledon managers short term and long term, and as part of the research I kind of did a bit of digging onto some of the players that are out on loan, and I'm kind of just intrigued by the progress of David Fisher, because he's 18 now and he's already at National League South. I think it's Hampton and Richmond, not 100% sure of that, but that's that's pretty impressive progress for an 18-year-old to be playing at that level. So you wonder how far is he off being able to do something similar to Zach Robinson, especially if Wimbledon do happen to be playing in League Two next season. I don't know if anyone's seen Fisher play. I haven't, but
yeah, I was going to say Zach has been very good. I think he probably would have done better staying out online. I think in an ideal world we don't have to recall him, so I can see why we didn't. Aaron Cosgrave was recalled when he was doing quite well at Dover, and he was meant to come in, and he looked sharp when he did get in, but then got incredibly unlucky with an injury. David Fisher's a bit. He's not 18. He's 20 odd.
He's 20. Oh, okay. My information.
Yeah, and he's not. He's not as close to the first team as Zach Robinson. He's doing quite well at Hampton, but I think we have to be realistic. He's not a League One striker just yet.
Is he League Two though, George?
Maybe not yet. Maybe in another year or so. But I think going back to talk about Sam Cosgrove, we mustn't forget it's a 2 million striker. Yeah, he was a 2 million striker a year ago, but he was playing League One. He couldn't break into the Shrewsbury side that was really struggling this year. This is a league. Cosgrove, it wasn't like he was setting the world alight this season in League One. If he was doing well in League Two or he was struggling, not breaking into the Birmingham side, fair enough. But I think, to pin our hopes on someone who was rejected by Shrewsbury, and if you speak to Shrewsbury fans about him, they were laughing their heads off when we signed him.
Yeah, I did, George. Gabriel invited me on and spoke to a Shrewsbury fan, and he absolutely, well, by the time I'd finished speaking, I was like, oh my days, what have we done? You remember the conversation, Gabriel, wasn't it? Yeah. Anne-Marie, we've got a question here. It's a long one here, but Dominic Francis, we are saying that we have had no strikers, but this season we have played, and I can't see it on the screen, but we've got Palmer, Cosgrove, Robinson, Cosgrave, Dapo, Avasal, Delboy. George, I don't know his full name. I'm not going to try and pronounce it and do any. Aaron Presley. A lot of strikers. Interesting list there, Anne-Marie, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think it's as we've all alluded to within this conversation. Really, there's almost been a bit of a perfect storm with injuries, with some matches just not pulling off for us at some stages within the season. I think coming on from what George was just saying with Cosgrove, I just wonder if we were maybe panicking too much, trying to just get as much of a like-for-like replacement for Ollie Palmer as we could, when actually, exactly like Dominic has said in there, we have got quite a lot of talent already in that squad. We have got strikers. I don't really know if I fully understand the logic behind the Del Boy signing, but I really hope he proves me wrong. How did he get on yesterday, George?
Yeah, Derek, it wasn't, he
Del
couldn't
Boy,
really do...
George. Del
Boy, sorry, yeah.
Come on, only falls and horses now, isn't it?
Yeah, he didn't have much to do yesterday, but he's looked sharp in the couple of games that he's played before then. Going forward, he could be a good option for us. But I think just we haven't settled on that, and it's interesting what Aaron said about Bodvarsson. And I think there were options out there, but I think we almost sort of got and said we have to get an exact replacement for Ollie. We need a 6-foot-something target man who can lead the line. When perhaps we could have found somebody who, maybe of a different mould, but might have contributed a bit more in terms of goals and assists. So I think it's just one of those of I can see why the recruitment panel did what they did, but I think they just got railroaded and ended up making a mistake that's ended up where we are. Because let's be honest, our strikers, you look at that list: Dapo, Terry, and we're not going to include Derek on that list because it's too harsh on him because he hasn't been with us long. But Elvis, Daps, Terry, they haven't worked out. And when we have 3 loan signings and all strikers and none of them work, you're needing a big ask, and when you're relying on an 18-year-old to step up from the academy to make your difference. And
Dominic is absolutely right by listing the fact that there are so many. How can we be in a position to build that momentum, build that consistency and confidence if the team is chopping and changing so much? But obviously, we understand that there's reasons that's happened because of injury or form. It is so difficult to keep that momentum up. But that is going to be the one thing that will keep us up if we can find that again. Like George said, 4 points from the next 2 games is where we're at. Really, that's the situation we're in. But we've got that talent is in that squad. We just need that belief. I just don't know personally where that comes from at the moment, but hopefully, Bowen can bring that.
Aaron?
Firstly, sorry for anyone who heard any excess noise off my feed. You know, my mum has a habit of sending me random TikToks and WhatsApp. You know, just lucky it wasn't it was family friendly. I can't help but feeling that I'm sure after we had Lyle Taylor on, after the news that Robbo left on Monday on BBC London, he made a really salient point that the gaping hole that this club has right now, which is a Simon Bassey shaped hole, someone who you just feel was so reliable, so dependable, and was effectively like a bit of a Peter Taylor. For those who have like a bit of a romanticism like I did with Clough and Taylor, he was very much the mould of Peter Taylor. You know, going around in his black cab and scouting players and finding players. And it felt like he was the one who would like coax people in to join the club. And again, you look back at some of the squads, and from joining the Football League, the players that this club has been able to attract, going through to the Neil Ardley squad, which I will maintain will always be my favourite squad for this club, the promotion squad, because it was brilliant, it was exciting, it had a real blend and a real mix of people that wanted to work hard for each other. Right now, again, I'm sorry to be critical, but the loans, they could have been used better. They haven't been used properly. I just think that there needs to be a bit of a culture shift, and I think with Mark Bowen, as I said on Monday, or as I said the other day, you've got someone who is a very experienced campaigner, who's the director of football, who probably, since Jaap Stam, has been, you know, the person to bring the most sort of stability to Reading Football Club, who have been in a real mess for the past 2 years. And so, I'll be honest with you, if Mark Bowen stays beyond the summer, I'm really excited for the transfer window, if he stays.
Gabriel, and then George.
Well, yeah, I think George was in before me. I don't know if you want to say anything, George.
No, thanks, Gabriel. You can go first, mate.
Cheers, pal. Yeah, the reason why I'd be, and Aaron's talked about Mark Bowen as the long-term side of things and what he could offer in the transfer market if the worst does happen or if he does stay on for League One. I just feel like Mark Bowen would look to recruit players from higher up the English football pyramid, and I just worry that I look at Wimbledon as a club, and it's historically come up from non-league twice, and it seems like fans respond well to players that have either come through the academy or players that have really worked hard to get into the position that they're in their game. And I just worry that if you go too much on players that have come through Premier League academies, will they be able to connect with Wimbledon fans in the same way? And that's why I think long-term the right man is Luke Garrard, because he's someone that's been at Boreham Wood for 7 years. You'll have seen with your own eyes, unfortunately, what his sides can do on a good day this season. And I think that seems like a really good fit from my point of view. And I think he'd have a good eye as well in the non-league market. And for me, that's where I'd be looking to. I'd be looking for gems in the National League and in the National League South.
George, just quickly before you come in, I just want to sort of move it on a little bit, and it sort of brings us in nicely to a football panel. So, dudes, I'm not going to get you involved in this one. So on that side of it, you're welcome to come in, but I'm not going to get involved. So, obviously, the 23rd of March, we had what we now class as a dreaded vote of confidence, and it brings it in nicely because it's sort of like, you know, in terms of the statement, it was, you know, whilst the stadium bill has resulted in an uncompetitive playing budget, the board believes that more support could have been provided in the areas of the football panel. In response to this, the board has signed off a more senior resource for the football panel. George, there's no doubt recruitment this year has been really, really tough, hasn't it? Moving forward, you know, we've gone with a head coach. Mark Bowen's come in, who's down as a manager. So, you know, do we stay with it? Because we've gone quite, you know, if you think about football committee and now head coach side of it, we've gone quite far down the road, haven't we, with our loans going out, our kids going out to conference clubs and stuff. What do you think we can do in the summer?
Well, I think the youngsters going out on loan is a completely different thing. That's completely different to the recruitment panel and any recruitment process. The loan market's all the work of our loans manager and Michael Hamilton in the academy, so they're completely different things. But in terms of like the recruitment this year has killed us. Let's be brutally honest. The recruitment has absolutely killed us this year. We've signed probably 8 players this year, and 2 or 3 of them have worked, if we're brutally honest. And it's just not worked. And, I think, that word uncompetitive budget, 2 words before Nick starts commenting. Uncompetitive budget, Robbo was a head coach. He was 1/5 of the football panel, and he was given an uncompetitive budget, which the board has admitted, and the recruitment was wrong. And you look at it, and you've got to feel sorry for Will Daniels, Ian, and Kenny, and the rest of the scouting team, because you can have the best scouts in the world with the best eyes in the world. If you don't give them a budget to sign in, the quality that we need, then what's the point in having the model? Brentford have made the model work, but is incredibly expensive. I think it could work in the future, but it would require a huge amount of cost. But it pays off in dividends, and it's, it seems we're abandoning it. Well, I'll let Dukes comment on it, but it looks like we're trying to change it. We've gone back to a manager sort of style setup, and I don't know what the long-term plan is with the recruitment panel, but we've got it wrong this year, and we need to majorly look into what's gone wrong and how to make sure that in the future these mistakes are never made again.
Dibs?
Yeah, I think I think you gave me a get out, and I should probably have taken it when but nonetheless, here we go, foot in mouth. I think, the statement. We've got to hold our hands up to the things we get wrong as a Don's Trust board, and I kind of been talking to a few people who online and so forth who've said, you've done this wrong, DTB, and it's like, well, actually, that's not our remit. We're there to support and provide oversight and to represent the facts, but we don't meddle in football. So I should probably make that clear again, that we don't pick teams, we don't, hire and fire players, managers, whatever. That's not what we do. We don't meddle. And often we're accused of meddling in football, and you can't really win because we don't. But we're accused of it, and I think sometimes people say, "Well, maybe we should have meddled or replaced someone or made a move on this earlier and so forth." So I don't think you can win. But when we do get things wrong, I'm a believer that we have to hold our hands up. And the statement that we've just discussed was the board, or both boards, the PLC and the board, holding their hands up and saying, we've, in my words, we've kind of, with regards to Mark, we've sent him out there to do battle with his hands tied behind his back. And that has to be on us in terms of budget. There are circumstances which are beyond us, because if you look back to 2019, we were talking about being budgets sending us out into non-league. We're going to have to sell the club. We couldn't afford the stadium. So we've had to do things to get us fast forward 3 years. We're in a good position where we've got only friendly debt, pretty much, against the stadium, which we have now built. But, we're not an endless stream of money. The bonds, which were amazing, got us the stadium, but they didn't get the playing budget. So we haven't had the best playing budget. We came off the back of a year and without fans in COVID. So I think we're at year 1 almost in that respect. We sent Mark out with a really uncompetitive, I think is the phrase we've used. It's one of the bottom playing budgets. And, you have to fight the odds from day one, which is what we do, which we think, right, we've got a system here which will help us do that. But when you look back, we've sent him out, and I think, well, I'd love to see, he got us playing. He got a tune out of those players in the beginning of the season. Very exciting football. I'd love to see what he could do with a budget. Now, bringing it forward, you also talked about the panel, and that's always going to be a bit of it's going to have teething issues. I think, we alluded to that in the statement. We've got lessons to learn as a PLC, as a Dodge board, and we have to take down the chin. We've not got it right. Maybe we need more experience on there. That's what's become apparent. So that's what we're going to do. So again, we'll take down the chin. We put it on the statement. Doesn't help us in what's gone on with this season. But what I will say, we're talking about staying up, and if we do stay up, we'll have an increased playing budget next year, because we've got things not just like the bond. It saved us, I think, about £160,000 a year and counting in interest alone. So aside from the fact it's friendly debt and stuff. Then we've got the education hub bringing in money. We've got the first year of the Broncos deal bringing in a full season of £200,000 plus and stuff. So there are things we've got right off the field, and now it's a case of translating it on the field. I think we have to stay up to see all these things come to fruition. But yeah, I think I could not say anything because I have to emphasise that again. We have to take it on the chin. We've got things wrong, and we've got to, if you think it's that bad, you can vote us out and so forth. But we have got good things right. I have to say that we're not just awful people.
No, George, I appreciate that. George, obviously you're coming in there. Gary Fletcher, I love this. The word budget again. Women didn't use that word in the Premier League. Gary, mate, come on. That was 20 years ago, mate. Come on. George.
Stuart, with the state of the energy crisis in this country, the amount of secondary glazing that Gary Fletcher's going to be Gary, put where your mouth is, pal, yeah? Put some money into the club, man. Buy it out. Become a minority shareholder. Do well. Get your boys playing.
Oh, superb. George, follow that.
So just, Gary, the budget, I think talking about it is, it is a uncompetitive budget. And, Deep said we sent Robbo into battle with his hands behind his back, tied behind his back. And that's what's so disappointing because the board, for me, the decision-making process put out that statement on Thursday. And then on Monday said, yeah, you've battled for us all season with your hands tied behind the back, but, we're parting ways. And for me, that's the thing that was really disappointing because that statement on Thursday gave me confidence that we'd perhaps, say, yeah, we've got it wrong this year, but we have confidence that, nobody could have done any more with our budget this year. Where we were in terms of the budget league and stuff and the way that we have played, particularly in the first half of the year, we've played some good football. I'm disappointed in the decision makers that have allowed that to happen and sacked somebody for going into battle with his items tied behind his back effectively.
Gabriel?
Yeah, I'd just kind of be interested to get your senses, and especially you, Graham, on maybe the move home to Player Lane, because that's a huge thing for the football club, coming home. And I've seen a few videos on with Ivor Heller, who I think is a fantastic custodian for this football club, and how important that was. And I just wonder whether part of that took so much energy out of the people at the club that maybe issues like have we got the right recruitment team and are we investing enough into this, that, and certain important on-field matters, did that almost take a bit of a backseat? That's the thing that I'd be sort of curious to know from an outside perspective.
For me?
Dave, yeah.
Yes and no. It's undoubtedly been a priority. Every meeting we have opens up with finance. What's the latest? And it's had to be like that because, again, going back to 2019, it wasn't a pretty place. We had that AGM or an SGA, it was an AGM, wasn't it?
EGM.
AGM, and that was the night I was sworn in at the end of that, having sort of that bombshell, and it was like, what have I signed up for here? But luckily, there were far cleverer people than me who came up with bonds and things and got us out. But that has been a priority. I have to accept that. Have things gone by the wayside? I don't know. I think we thought we had a good system set up with the football panel. Within that, you have to think the head coach is almost, long term, it's changeable because you've got a structure and a club, and someone comes in, you get the best coach you can possibly get, and they do their best coaching, and don't have to worry about this agents and all that, like finance and stuff. There's a story I want to say, and I don't think I can. But there was, previous.
Don't get yourself in trouble, dudes.
No, previous managers haven't always been good at maths, and there's been issues with managers dealing with budgets and stuff, and we've removed that. I'll stop with that. But what George said.
Aaron's eyes lit up there. Look.
Yeah. Back to George's point about the statements and what transpired. This is again something that I feel like I'm assimilated to the Borg here, and and I'll defend the DTB to the hilt, and I won't. I'll say it like it is if I can. And I think very much personally, I think it's 100% possible to be behind that statement. I was very behind that statement. Everything it said about looking forward and what we've got in place long term, and Mark being coach for that at that time and so forth. Ultimately, it comes back to do the DTB meddling decisions, and I think it's possible for the DTB to have been behind that joint board's statement and then not meddle in the decision to make a change. I hope that makes sense, because we're not the board that would, or the individuals who would say it's time to make a change. We would be the board who are presented with that decision or recommendation and then say, no, you can't do that, we're vetoing it, or we're not going to meddle because you're paid to do football, you're paid professional to make decisions. That's what we're paid for, to make those decisions, and we'll accept that. So I do believe that it's possible to be behind that statement and yet not meddle with people's decisions once they're paid to do them.
George, just going to move on a little bit. I know you want to come
Sorry,
in.
can I just one very quick thing before we move on? Sorry for dominating this, but I just one last question on this bit. I was just talking about the structural thing, and I agree that the DTB keeping out of it and letting the PLC board make these decisions. But just in the current circumstances, when we have an interim chair, whether that might mean that we should have the DTB taking a more active role rather than having a permanent CEO, which we used to have.
Well, I mean, we have an interim chair, and he is exactly that. It's interim, and we've decided chair rather than CEO. But to all intents and purposes, he's making the decisions of the former CEO. He's assumed all the responsibilities of the former CEO, Joe, who has been assisting him, but very much in the background. Because I think, and that was a conscious decision, because I think once you have announced you're leaving the building, people are looking for leadership, and you don't want any sort of blur. You don't want two people. So that was a conscious decision that Joe is supporting from the background. But Ian is very much the chair, or the former, assuming the roles of the former CEO. So I don't think I would say it's been a fairly smooth transition, to be honest, in many ways. And I don't think, as we wouldn't necessarily interfere or meddle with the CEO's decisions, I don't really think we should interfere with the interim chair's decisions.
Aaron?
Sorry for the terminology. What's the life expectancy of this interim chair, and what happens going forward?
Life expectancy is quite well.
Within the role, not like this isn't Boop or anything like that.
I was going to say he's just had COVID, so.
What I'm saying is, how long is he sticking around for, and what's the situation with getting a proper replacement?
Well, that will be something done by led by Mick himself. He's going to be very active in telling us what he thinks that the role should be, whether it's an MD and a sporting director reporting in, or whether it's a chair, or whether it's a CEO like for like. He's going to help us decide that, having been in that role. He's, I think, very well qualified to do so. His day job is mentoring CEOs and MDs, I believe. And he's been a CEO or MD for many, many years in his career, very successful. So I think we'd be daft not to listen to him. Time-wise, I think we're looking at over the summer. But let's stay up first. Focus on that. We talked about where our focus has to be, and sometimes you're juggling plays. But I think staying up's the focus. But it's going to be one of our priorities. We just actually, I should say this, the DTB's priorities were listed. Published on the website about a week or so ago, along with individual roles and responsibilities. And on there, you'll see, I think one of the first things is to recruit a permanent leader for the club.
Super.
That's worth looking,
Brilliant, thanks, dude. Cool, let's move on. So, Anne-Marie, Mark Bowen's coming. How much of a... I don't know about you, but I was pretty... not stunned, because I don't think stunned's a word, but it was a little bit of a left field, wasn't it? In terms of, I think we were all expecting someone to come in with that Wimbledon connection, and we didn't go for it, Anne-Marie.
I was really surprised. I was obviously surprised by the timing as well, because obviously we didn't know that Darius was stepping in, and I expected him to
unbeaten
to come in the weekend. I was expecting him to lead the team out at Sheffield Wednesday. So yeah, I was surprised. I was surprised in the terms that obviously he's got an incredible coaching background, and I thought that we'd maybe go away from that, having had somebody who was an amazing coach. Would we go for something completely opposite? Seems maybe that obviously he need so much time to bed it in, but it maybe seems that his approach to the game is quite similar. So I was quite surprised, almost like, have we gone for a like for like? Not sure. Obviously when we've had the situation in the past of so many rumours flying around about various different managers who are out of work. Would they fit? But I think, the most important thing between now and the end of the season is just that it's staying up. That's just where the focus needs to be. Yes, as George was saying, as other people have said, there's loads of things we need to take the time to look at, like recruitment and finances and X, Y, and Z. There's loads of things, but right now, the focus is having somebody to come in and just fix with what we do have. I don't know how quickly he can do that. He said he hasn't even been to Plough Lane yet.
I know. I can't believe it. I can't believe it didn't convince him to take the job. Surely, like, everyone loves Plough Lane, don't they?
Yeah, that's it. Common sense. Yeah, that will sell a decision to anybody. But have we got enough time for him to fully understand what he can get from this squad? I hope so. I'll back him. I still don't think it's the right decision, but that's me. But
Yeah.
it is what it is. I respect that, and I fully get behind him. And
Definitely.
yeah, he can bring his angle to it. But as a coach, I've known of him as a coach from around football. But I was probably quite stunned as well, to be fair to you.
So George, yesterday we changed formation 3-5-2. It's a bit like a 5-3-2 in some situations like that. I don't know about you, George. Obviously, I only had one camera view, but we looked very defensive in terms of Zach and Aya played up top, but whenever they had possession, they dropped deep, covered the wide areas, and we sort of done a low block, George, didn't we? We sort of allowed Sheffield Wednesday to have the ball, and then engaged them. That's how not impressed, because obviously we got a late goal, but how I suppose impressed. He changed it very quickly. He got very few training sessions, and he changed the tactics quite heavily, George, didn't he?
I mean, I think we've played the 5-3-2 already this season. The only difference was we had attacking intent, a bit more attacking intent when we played that shape under Robbo. Yes, Saturday was very much, it was almost like watching a San Marino team at Wembley. It was 11 behind the ball and then praying they don't break you down, and then hoping they can catch you on the break. It was 11 behind the ball. We were, we deserved a point out of it. It nearly worked for us, but it was 11 behind the ball. There was no attacking intent. There was no pressing. It was it was the opposite end of the spectrum to what we've seen Robbo teams. Because under Robbo sides, even when we haven't been getting results, we've been trying to attack. We haven't been clinical, but we've been trying to attack. And we have had, at very least, been attempting to press. Whereas yesterday was just drop back, defend. It was like watching the end of the Ardley area where it was just backs against the walls and then pray for a 0-0.
So you were
that was
impressed.
our style.
You were impressed then, George.
Well, like I said, we deserved a point. It nearly worked. It's
Yeah,
the
and I think that's where it
style
is.
The style of football is, the complete opposite to what we should be doing, and I do worry because we saw under Ardley the way that certain players' progress and development was hindered because of the style of football we were playing, because they didn't have the right players around them, or they were asked to do jobs that didn't fit them. And Anthony Hartigan's a prime example of that. And now we've got all these attacking players, the flair, the creativity of players like Ayub, of Rudy, and all these type players. And we're saying sit in a low block, we're going to defend, we're going to play for a 0-0 and hopefully hit them on the break. Playing a low block. And it's just, I worry that the impact it's going to have on their long-term development, losing a coach like Robbo, and now playing a tactic that don't suit them in any way.
Aaron, obviously we go Charlton on Tuesday. Do you think Mark Bowen will change it in terms of going from because realistically draws now are not going to keep Wimbledon up. So do you think he will change tactically?
I just wanted to build on that point that George just made there about players' development and sort of, that they're missing a coach and stuff like that. George, simply, who cares? Who cares? The main thing is that this club survives first and the club maintains its position in this division. Players will come and go. I promise you, and I don't want to name any names, but a player you may care about or that, you believe you want to see grow with the club is all well and good. But trust me, it's always side before self, isn't it? Let's be fair. So if they lost the coach, you know what? My heart bleeds for him. But fundamentally, Mark Bowen has been brought in and is a very, very, very well-respected coach, as is Eddie Alphabet, his assistant. They're very well-respected people, and they're being brought in to do a job. if the club cared more about players' development than sort of sinking down the Football League, then they would have kept the previous regime. And I love the previous regime. I'm never going to sit here and slate them. And I wouldn't ever imagine doing that because I wanted that previous regime. But fundamentally, surely league position matters more over the development of Anthony Hartigan.
No, but what I would say on that is it's not just the players now, but it's the players we've got on the fringes of the first team. So I think, and also we've talked about it a lot, but the model we were building was all based on having young players developing them and turning them into sellable assets. If you go and play a low block, those players are not going to develop. I know Mark Bowen's a very, very good coach, and Eddie's an absolutely outstanding coach. I've heard incredible things about him. But if you're just playing that low block shape, which I don't know if it's going to be our long term, maybe we just did it as a one-off at Sheffield. But if we do that, then it's very difficult for the players to have that creativity and show it and become the sellable assets. And
but what in the past, however many years you support the club, and I'm not going to sit here and profess to being die-hard Wimbledon. I've only really sort of got involved in the club in the last 7-8 years. What confidence have you got? No offense, I think it's Doobs who said it. What confidence have you got in people on boards to do the best by the club and sell those players for maximum value? You can put time, effort, coaching, resources. You can feed them fucking manure. You know, you can give them the best, you know, groomers and stuff like that. They're basically like, you know, show ponies and show dogs. You can do the best by them. But what confidence have you got as a person that this club will become fully sustainable on selling those assets? Because let's be fair, Lyle was a sellable asset. Yes, he does this 2-year contract thing, but you know, the club played the game and rolled the dice to ensure survival in League One rather than selling him after a year of his contract. You know,
Aaron, can I just? I'd quite like to make a point because the club. One thing that to me shows the club is willing to protect its best assets and sell for the right fee was handing Ayub Asal a 3-year contract last summer. And because of that 3-year contract, if anyone comes in for Asal this summer, you're talking at approximately £1 million. Even other young talents, you're looking at 2-year contracts. So for me, that shows that this is a club that's looking to value its best young players. And I don't think that because Wimbledon have gone 22 games without a win, that we should take away all the good structural elements that the club's done and the things that it's got right, because I think there's some good things in there. Of course, it's not gone right on the field, but if we start saying it doesn't matter tying down your long-term assets, it doesn't matter, the club isn't going to sell players for big money, I think that's a mistake not to give them that.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is putting all your eggs in one basket and saying, let's keep the system going, i.e., let's keep the previous regime because they've grown up with this coach, and let's make sure we don't change things just because we don't want to harm one or two players' development for the greater instead of protecting the greater good. That's a mistake.
But I'd say what I'm saying that is
But the club's got a stadium to pay off, Alan.
Yes, to stay in League One.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and I agree. That's an important thing.
With all due respect, right now this club needs consolidation on the pitch. And for me, honestly, I know it's a bit too little, too late. In hindsight, it's a great thing. Neil Harris was the man. Neil Harris is someone who will build something. The football will be toilet to watch. It will be boring, but he will get you solid mid-table finishes. He'll probably have access to a certain level of player, and then he will build, and he knows how to get out of the division from the top end. Nothing is guaranteed to work, but I don't know. If you're going to stay in this division, are you taking gambles, or if you're going to pay for the stadium, are you taking gambles on certain players and saying, right, well, you know what, we're going to sell X, Y, Z in 2 years for £2.5 million? Or you sat there going, right, well, you know what, let's sort ourselves out on the pitch and hopefully that will come up as well. Because let's be fair, we can sit here and go, Ayub Asal's worth £5 million. But then in 2 years' time, Portsmouth are coming for £1 million, Millwall coming for 750 grand, Charlton are coming for £1.5 million, and we're sat there going, shit, we thought we'd get £5 million. We thought we'd get 5 million back. There's got to be an element of realism. It's all well and good plucking out figures, pie in the sky figures going, we'll get 3 mil for him, 4 million in, 4 million in, 5 million, 6 million in, 2 million for Zanev. Great, cool. But what are you left with ultimately? What are you left with? Everyone plays FIFA, Stuart. Everyone plays FIFA. We could all get quotes and numbers and generate our own little budgets and stuff like that. But the fact of the matter is the club needs to stay in League One.
Amory?
I think just on the Neil Harris, if I can make this very quickly, because I know other people will want to have their say. Yeah, cheers. Neil Harris, the reason Neil Harris is having success at Gillingham, I think, is because he's got a target man to play to in Verdane Oliver, who does his job very well. I don't think Wimbledon have a focal point. I think your strengths are in other areas of the field, a Sal, in Rodoni. And I suppose that the argument would be that if you're going direct, you want someone that can hold the ball up for long periods and bring others into the game. I'm not sure Wimbledon have got that necessarily.
Agree. Amory?
Yeah, and to be fair, Gabriel, that's kind of what we were saying in earlier on in terms of, did we just try and get a like replacement, and it's not worked out with Cosgrove being that replacement for Ollie. Reason for raising my hand really was just to say that Aaron's absolutely right. There will be things embedded for years to come by the previous regime that are in place, and there is that element of evolution in football as managers come and go. The clubs change, things adapt, but there is still that investment, and we won't fully lose what James Simmons has bought, what Robbo's bought, what that previous regime, that doesn't just disappear because we now have Mark Bowen in. But I totally agree, the absolute number one focus right now is let's keep the League One status. I'm not saying I'm not with Mark Bowen in doing that. I just struggle to see how he would do it, but I'm excited and fully back his regime coming in terms of how he's going to do that. Absolutely, it's just about consolidating. Let's do whatever we can right now to keep that status.
George, quickly before we move on.
Yeah, just quickly, I just want to go back to what Aaron said. The difference between League One and League Two financially is less than the difference of an Ibisal being sold effectively. So for me, I'd rather let's say Crew, get relegated, bounce between League Two and League One constantly, but have a production line of young players coming through the academy, than be in League One and be Gillingham, and just have, experienced journeyman type players who come in, do a job, you stay up, but you don't really achieve anything long term. I'd rather bounce between the clubs and be like a Crew, even if that means relegation every now and again.
I don't think I was saying, sorry, I don't think Mark's I wasn't saying, fill the squad with journeyman players out of Gillingham and sort of sit in League One and aim for nothing. No, the idea is to consolidate and build something, build a foundation. Now, again, it's all well and good saying we want to sell young players, but surely if you want to sell young players and bring these players up, then you want that to benefit your future. So why are you going down, then back up, down, then back up, down, then back up? Surely it should be a case of sell young players, invest in others, buy that, like sort of trade effectively, and move up further up League One and into the Championship. It's all well and good, and I agree with you about the whole selling players and selling homegrown assets. That should be how the club should become. But fundamentally, it's a case of trusting the people above, whoever it is, the interim chair, the interim chair's wife, I don't know, whoever it is, to sell these players for the maximum potential value with the maximum potential add-ons to do the best business possible for the club. Right now, this club needs an accountant. And they've had an accountant. And people talk to me, we talked about it on my B podcast, on wherever, about why Wimbledon was successful going into League Two and into League One, and basically that transition from non-league to Football League. There is a hangover right now because that transition is very, very difficult. Honestly, people have a weird relationship with Sutton when it comes to Wimbledon. Some don't like them, some like them, I don't know. Respect to them right now, because the way they are carrying themselves coming into the Football League is admirable. Speak to Matt Gray and I every week. The guy turns around and he's like, we're doing things step by step. He's learning on the job. They've got an accountant as a chairman who refuses to bankrupt the club to ensure Football League survival. He's doing things very, very slowly. Look at you look at the state of their ground, man. People were complaining. Away fans complain about Kingsmeadow. Kingsmeadow was a palace, yeah, compared to Gander Green Lane. It is a mess. It's a hodgepodge of different buildings, but they're doing things slowly. The beauty of Wimbledon when they came into the Football League, and again, I'm gonna upset people by saying it. Eric Samuelson, you had someone, this old granddad-like figure, who you could rely on to trust to get things done, and who would not look to shaft you for ridiculous amounts of money, and who would just keep things ticking over nicely. He prevented the hangover, and I know George has got a massive smile and says because he's probably going to outfox me or something. But from an outsider's perspective, the hangover is setting in now.
George, Dave can go now.
I just wanted great point and agree with just about everything on that. But Eric did stand up in a meeting and say we should sell the club. So
Eric,
yeah.
mate, Eric, I know someone who wanted to buy the club, and Eric said no. And that person now owns a Football League club that's doing pretty well. So,
but your point was we would never, under Eric, overstretch and so forth. Well, we did. We almost went bust. He stood up and said we have to sell the club because we've got no money. We can't afford to build a stadium. So, just as a sort of fact check, he did lots of great things, but then.
But you had someone there, i.e., a figure, to take you into the Football League, and just someone who basically, it's sad to say, you could pin the blame on, basically, because that's what happens now in certain areas. But you could pin the blame on in places. You know, there was someone who was accountable, someone who was responsible, someone who made decisions very, effectively proactively.
Okay, but ultimately said, right, I've led us to bankruptcy. We've got to sell the club. So I just have to sort of, that was 2019, and that's where we were. And he literally stood up and said, we have to sell the club. So for all the great things he did that as well.
George,
sorry,
Dave. Cool. So we go into our last 6 games. Charlton on Tuesday, and then we all know this game is coming up on Saturday. Dudes, I don't know obviously what you can say. If you can't, don't worry. But Franchise game is not a bubble game. Are we asking for trouble being set up? Can we expect some restrictions to be in place next Saturday? Any updates at all, dudes, that you can share with us?
Not specifically. It was a bit of a surprise to us on the board when this came to light. And I think without speaking for fellow members of the board, I think we're probably united in thinking it's a bad idea.
Yeah.
History of bad ideas is one of the worst. I don't think that's a wise move at all. It's their first time at our ground, and there'll be tensions, shall we say. So we are hoping, or I am hoping, and my colleagues are hoping to get an update, and we've put across, and the chair shares our concerns that it should be a bubble game. But we haven't heard back from that.
So, how are you all feeling? We go 6 games, 2 home games this week. Realistically, George, how many points do you think we need from these 2 home games?
I think you need 4 points from these 2 games to even still be fighting. You look at it where we are now. The results haven't gone our way the last couple of weeks. 4 points keeps us alive. 6 points gives us a good fighting chance. Anything less than 3 or less, and I think we're probably gone before Easter.
Gabriel, what do you, from the outside in, what's your feelings in terms of the strength around the league? Obviously, Gillingham got a late goal against them, which I did cheer, of course. But Morecambe won comfortably. Fleetwood won comfortably at Crewe. Where do you think Wimbledon need these 2 games?
I think first and foremost, I think Wimbledon are quite lucky that the nature of the relegation dogfight has been as it is. You got 5 other teams that are averaging less than a point a game. I would say that's pretty rare. So I think that normally if you go 22 games or 21 games in the league without a win, you'd be toast. But the fact that the other teams have been awful, Crewe and Doncaster are gone. Morecambe have had a long winless run as well. Gillingham were absolutely appalling, and they've only in the last couple of months under Neil Harris completely resurged. And Fleetwood have been on a long winless run up until quite recently. So I think that's given you a chance. I think it's going to be less than 50 points that well, quite a lot less than 50
Yeah,
points.
no way is 50 going to be the magic number, is it?
Nah.
Yeah, so I think how many are you going to need? You're looking at 45 maybe. So that, I mean, 40. If you're saying 45 is going to be the total, that would be might be even be a little bit less than that. I mean, goodness,
I hope so, because I don't think we're getting 45.
Yeah, say that there is. I'm kind of doing the maths as I go here, so that's probably not the best thing. But yeah, you're looking at 40 to 43 odd. So you're looking at 10 points from the last 6 games. I think that is quite a demanding requirement for the Dons.
Aaron, what are your thoughts? Big 2 games, isn't it? Charlton should be, Plough Lane should be absolutely buzzing on Tuesday night.
I'm desperate to be there, but
I know you are.
See where my commitments are. Where my commitments lie. Otherwise, survival. That's what I'm saying.
Yep. Anne-Marie?
It'll happen.
Anne-Marie, how are you? What are you thinking? It's going to be...
Yeah, a Tuesday's huge. And you know, Jack Rudoni said that in his interview, didn't he? You know, we know how big it is. It's more just...
Yep.
It's huge, and as cringy and cliche as it is, every game going in is going to be like a cup final. It's how they're going to have to prepare with that mentality. It could be the tipping. If we get something from it Tuesday, will that bring some life and confidence and zest back to the squad? Let's really, really hope so. We just have to be noisy out there. It's the situation we're in, and just really try and bring that positivity, because I know it does help the players. I really don't know what to expect. I mean, Charlton haven't got too much to play for. It's a bit of a derby. We've got a little bit of had a few barneys with them in the past, to say the least. I don't know. I honestly don't know what to expect, but I know I'll be there in full voice.
Dubes, what are you? It's going to be a tough game, isn't it, on Tuesday?
Yeah, well, whatever it takes. So you know what? We haven't had many upsets this year since Oxford early in the season. Was that the first? We weren't really expected to win, and we won. You know, now we're not really expected to win week to week. So let's cause an upset. Whatever it takes. You know, if it's a point a game, whatever it is, just let's do it. Let's do it. It's in our hands.
Definitely.
Players know that.
Definitely. Well, look, thank you all for joining us. I really appreciate it. It's been good. It's been good conversation. George Jones, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Gabriel, thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, no worries, G. Thanks for having me.
Aaron, as always,
Always
a pleasure. Always a pleasure, even with your friend behind you, who's been covered now. Kevin's gone. I think Kevin's literally just got like nightmares. I'm gonna. Anne-Marie, good to see you again. Tuesday night, we look forward to seeing you.
Yes, please. Yeah, it'd be fantastic. And I think I should probably, while we're live, release an apology to the club for the use of the club crest for my hen do last weekend, with my face imprinted on the head of the griffin or whatever we have on the badge there. See, Wimble hens were on tour. So
if someone on Facebook, not naming any names, no, definitely not naming any names. I'll tell you later, if they find out, mate, this was America, you'd be subpoenaed right now.
I wonder if Matt Haylock will want to. I don't think they'll sell in the club shop if they've certainly put the logo of my face on it. But yeah, superb. I'll see you on Tuesday, guys.
Definitely. And Dubes, as always, thank you very much for joining us, mate.
Thank you very much for having me, and hopefully not getting me in too much trouble. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Definitely. And as we are live on 9 Years TV pre-match, and we are desperate to have a post-match where we can celebrate a win. We have not seen a win yet on our show. And Gabriel, you were on our first one at Morecambe, which I still laugh about now because we said there's no way it's going to be a 0-0 draw, and that's what it was. But yeah, we desperately need a win. So join us. We'll be live from 6:30, 7:15, George? I always forget midweek.
6:30.
6:30. We will start at some point. And we are looking forward to having a special guest, and hopefully we can announce that soon. So thank you for joining us, and roll on Tuesday and 3 points at Plough Lane.
You don't.
Hello.
Hello.
Well, it looks like it might actually be working.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 9 Years podcast.
Oh, well, no, don't joke with me that we're live. Oh, wow. I'm very sorry, everybody. We were miles away. We were pondering this defeat. I can't talk today. People are just rubbishing it because it's never going to happen. And I'll bet my mortgage, my life, everything I have that Neil Ardley will not go to Notts County.
Interesting.
Apparently, they've had 18 stays of